Well, you read the title. Here we go. God, this is so hard to talk about. I've been dying to talk about this forever, and now that I actually am trying to, I can't talk. Gah. It's difficult to know where to begin here. So I'm just going to start at the earliest thing that I can remember about this. When I was 5, believe it or not, my mother, she and my father felt that it was necessary to sit down with me and explain to me that I had to stop telling my neighbors, my peers, and my classmates that I was a girl. Apparently it had reached an awkward level. They explained to me that I had boy parts and that it would be confusing for other people if I were to call myself a girl. Trust me, no one was more confused about it than I was. I remember elementary school feeling very left out when they started differentiating us by gender. There was a particular incident where they taught the girls to curtsy and the boys to bow, and I remember being very upset that I was not allowed to learn to curtsy, so I taught myself. I was disappointed that I didn't get to wear a skirt. I wanted to be in the girls' gym period. And there were little things like that all throughout my childhood. And I didn't really understand what was going on in my head, in my life, why I felt this way. Things got particularly interesting when we got around the age of puberty, and they started giving us the classes with the changes that will happen in your body. I remember when my voice started to change, I was extremely upset about it. I remember crying about it, actually. And I remember trying to talk to my male peers about it and being like, why doesn't this bother you? And they were like, oh, it's awesome, we're getting our adult voices, it's great. And I'm like, no, I don't, why do you want that? You know, I felt the same way about facial hair and sweating and body hair and the other anatomical things, and I was just so deeply fascinated by the female side of things. I knew a disturbing amount of female anatomy. I'd been very intensely interested in it, to the point where it was embarrassing and actually kind of socially awkward because I knew things about girls that, you know, girls who hadn't gone through puberty yet didn't know. And that was confusing for all of us, and some of them felt threatened, of course. So in high school, there were additional problems. Socially, I got along way easier with other women than I did with guys. And it created this interesting dynamic where I was basically a spy for both teams, because the guys were like, oh, you know stuff about girls, and girls talk to you and all this, and the girls were all like, you talk to boys, and I'm like, yeah, no, I get boys. Boys are totally obvious to me. No clue at all. I was in theater. I had access to the theater prop and costume closet, and I tried on a lot of dresses. I didn't have access to feminine clothing at home. I had my sisters and my mothers, and I'm not gonna lie, I did occasionally raid their stuff, but I didn't have the same kind of unfettered access that I did when I had access to that prop room. So in theater, of course, they have us wear makeup, and I picked up some skills along the way. Mostly just to not get poked in the eye with someone doing mascara on another person. It's pretty hard. A lot of the guys got on to me about this. It was, you know, why do you want to be in theater and do musicals, or, you know, that makes you gay? And first of all, no, it does not. Second of all, I'm being surrounded by women in proximity to me who want to touch my face. Yeah, I have to wear makeup, but I don't have to see my face. And you're in a locker room shower together with other men. I'm just saying, if either of us is going to have the appearance of being gay, there was a particular week where I let the girls do my nails every day that whole week. And every day I would come home and my mother would scream at me and beat me over the fact that she thought that people were going to perceive me as gay, which is obviously the worst thing you can be. And she insisted that I take it off every day. So every single day that week, I came home, got screamed at, got my ass kicked, and use nail polish remover. And I was like, this just means my nails are free for a new color tomorrow. How far do you want to take this, Mom? Sooner or later, you're going to run out of remover. I have an entire arsenal of women with various nail polish colors they have never tried because they're not ready to commit to it and want to see how it looks on real nails, and I am perfectly willing. I am not afraid. There was actually an incident. I went on a field trip for my Latin class, and it was some sort of competition, and we lost hard. We knew we were not in the running, and our day was done, and we were just waiting to see which other school won. And the girls gave me a makeover, and let me wear a skirt, and stuffed my chest with a sweater with a headband tied in the middle so that it would have cleavage, and I walked around outside like that. That's crazy. Looking back on it, I don't know how any of us could have not understood that I was very confident doing this, like abnormally so. And I think the girls just wanted to play with someone and they didn't care one way or the other, but for me this was an important experience. I wasn't like crying at the time or anything like that. I didn't care what people thought of me anymore because I got hell for it at home, I got hell for it in my classes, at lunch, everywhere, all the time. And I learned after a long time of that no matter what you do, someone is going to tell you you're doing something wrong or make you feel bad about it or guilty. And I didn't care. And that was kind of liberating because it allowed me to explore myself as much as I could while being in that environment and repressed. I was also often the only guy at the sleepovers where there were only girls. And I kind of wonder how all the parents were okay with this, looking back on it. Like, I think my parents were like, please God, just let them not be gay. Put them in a room full of women. Well, joke's on you. But the parents, I'm kind of surprised were okay with this. I think that on some level, people understood that at minimum I was not going to be a threat. And that's something. But I just got along so much better and so much more easily with other women than I did with guys. And then, in college, I was more or less forced to give up theater. That's a long story in itself. But I had to focus on getting my life together, getting my degree, getting out of my abusive family and that house, and being safe and secure and independent. So I let a lot of things go. I got very focused on just getting through and getting by. I gave up on a lot of this. I got into a very bad relationship that was extremely toxic, and then I suspect that I was cheated on by the end of that relationship. In any case, it ended very badly, and it just kind of broke me, because my entire life up to that point, I had felt like I wasn't going to be one of those guys who didn't care, wasn't emotionally invested. I wanted a long-term relationship. I wanted intimacy. And after so long of fighting with those people over that sort of thing, eventually I gave up. I gave up trying to be that kind of person. I was so done fighting what everyone kept telling me I was supposed to be like because I was a guy, that I just kind of went completely the other direction. And this was the darkest period of my life. I had a bit of a problem with alcohol. I was driving extremely recklessly, and this is apparently a super common thing for people with untreated PTSD and gender dysphoria, where they just try to overcompensate to fit into the box that they're forced into. And, you know, the risky behavior is also a PTSD thing. I wasn't taking very good care of myself, and right in the middle of that is when I met Amanda. And I realized I was at a crossroads in my life where I had a decision whether or not to continue down this dark path that I was on, or to put in an honest effort at a real meaningful relationship. Obviously, we know what I chose. And it was not an overnight thing. I dragged Amanda through hell. I continue to drag her through hell. PTSD is a fun ride. But eventually I did graduate. I did move out of my parents' house and in with Amanda. I did eventually get into therapy, mostly to treat my anxiety attacks and eventually to treat my PTSD. And as soon as I started to feel like I had a handle on my PTSD, there was just something nagging at the back of my head that I couldn't quite put my finger on Just something didn't feel right in my life. I still felt sad. And it wasn't precisely depression. I did have some overlap with that, but it didn't quite capture it correctly for me. Shortly after I started feeling like I was getting on top of my PTSD, I started feeling very confused about my gender identity. I got deep into Reddit, and I found a few subreddits in which trans people interact with each other a lot. And I found that I was relating a lot to the stories and feelings that they experienced. And things started making a little bit of sense. All those little things throughout my life where I felt like I was missing out on something or wasn't where I was supposed to be. The fact that when I was in high school, I went to bed almost every night wishing to wake up in an objectively feminine body. I also wished that I was intersex, because I knew what that was, but I didn't know what transgender was, so that I could have a uterus without knowing it. Transgender, when I was in high school and really thinking about this the first time as a partially developed person, was more conflated with the term transvestitism, where someone cross-dresses. And that was what I felt like I was doing, but I never felt like it was right. That didn't really connect for me. It wasn't that I wanted to dress like a woman, I wanted to wake up in a woman's body the next morning. A lot of these things are not indications that someone is trans. It doesn't matter that I didn't mind wearing makeup. It doesn't matter that I liked doing nail polish. It doesn't matter that I got along better with women than with men. All of those things are perfectly valid for men to feel. But the feeling like I was a girl and telling people so, the wishing that I could wake up in a different body, those kinds of things are much more in line with the transgender experience than with anything else. And something that kept me from coming out was I knew that with current technology, there was no way I would ever have a period. There was no way that I would ever carry children. Eventually, I decided that it would be better for me to take what I could get, and I would be happier with that than I would be doing nothing. Because the reality is that I tried doing nothing my whole life, and it left me feeling dissatisfied. So by the time I had really determined that I was transgender, I came to my PTSD therapist and told her this. And this is when she chose to reveal to me that she doesn't actually know what to do about gender identity issues at all. That this is not her experience and she doesn't know what to do about it. And I'm a little bothered by that, and I mentioned it in a previous video, because I had been bringing this up for the 3 years that I had been seeing her as a thing that I needed to talk about, and she never once told me that it wasn't something she could help me with, until it was so clear to me that I needed to deal with this and it was causing me distress that she had to send me elsewhere. I'm a little bothered by that. I don't think she did anything malicious, I just think that she was thinking maybe it wasn't that important to me unless I brought it up more directly. Which of course ultimately I did, but I'm worried about someone else who doesn't have that kind of confidence, who doesn't come to that conclusion on their own, being just confused for that period of time. It's a little concerning. But regardless, I came out to my therapist, and she suggested that I seek out people in real life to interact with who are transgender or under that umbrella, and she felt that it was very important for me to interact with people in real life rather than just online so that I could have more of a one-on-one interaction. So I went to a support group in my area and I met a bunch of other people who had very similar experiences and feelings that I did, and I'll be honest, it was a little scary. I felt a little dumb. I felt like, wow, it took me this long to figure this out. But then I remembered that I knew when I was 5. And I knew going through puberty and adolescence and adulthood that I wasn't fitting in right. Something wasn't right. So my support group recommended a gender therapist to me who diagnosed me almost immediately, within 2 or 3 sessions, with gender dysphoria. The process in New York is that your therapist writes you a letter to diagnose you, which you then take to your endocrinologist, and they prescribe you hormones if you want them, which I did want them. And to be completely honest, I wanted to know how I would feel running on estrogen instead of testosterone so that I could know, am I right about this? I won't know if I feel right doing the other thing that I've never done. How could I possibly know? So I got my diagnosis letter, walked out of that session, and immediately crashed my car. I was kind of a mess. I thought I had finally reached the point where I knew what I needed and what I was going to do next, and that it was all taken away from me. And through the magic of insurance, thankfully that did not happen. I did, of course, meet with an endocrinologist. I got my prescriptions. I started taking my hormone replacement therapy. So in the United States, and only in the United States, and there's a whole video that I'm probably going to end up making on this, the testosterone blocker that the trans women take is a diuretic, which makes you go to the bathroom a lot. And of course, this is the country with the bathroom problems for trans people, so, you know, let's just force them to go to the bathroom a bunch. That seems safe. Yeah, super fun. I decided that for me, and with the counsel of my therapist and doctor, that injectable estradiol was the way to go. So I've been doing hormone injections for several months now. If you're a little squeamish, I would recommend looking away right now because I'm going to put a video of me injecting myself, which some people are a little bothered by. So if that does bother you, I'll let you know when to come back.
Now, we take our paper towel, because I will bleed, and away we go. I'm not bleeding. How about that? All prepped, and this is the one time I don't bleed.
So, those of you who looked away, you can now rejoin the visuals. At the time of filming this video, I have not had my levels checked since starting hormone replacement therapy, so I have no idea where I'm at hormonally, but I'd say there's been some changes. And honestly, shortly after injecting the estrogen into myself, my brain, which had a constant nagging, persistent static running through it all the time. It wasn't loud, it was just continuously present. It just got quiet. I, for the first time, felt at peace with my brain. I felt like things were actually working the way they were meant to. I feel great. In a way that I've never really felt great, not this consistently. Sure, I had moments where I was happy and things like that, but I've never had this consistent of a base level of joy in my life. And at first I thought, okay, well maybe this is just relief. There was so much build-up to, am I trans, am I, transitioning, is this going to be right for me? And, I thought maybe it was just relief, but several months have gone by and I'm past the stage of relief and I still feel great. I started coming out to my friends. Every single one of them was fantastic. There were some people who had clearly never interacted with another trans person in their life and needed some education, but all of them were willing to learn, so that's something. I started coming out to my coworkers, and they were also very supportive. As of the time of recording this video, I have been fully out at work for the past 2 weeks. I came in presenting female those 2 weeks, and there were some people who were surprised. I played my part very well. Some people didn't really seem to have much of anything to say, and that's probably for the best. But those that did approach me told me that they were proud of me for being so brave. And this is a thing in the trans community in particular, where you don't feel brave doing this. You're not doing this for the sake of bravery or anything like that. Yeah, it's, the definition of bravery is perseverance through adversity, or potential adversity, and coming out at my job was a very scary prospect, and I did it, so I guess by strict definition of bravery, yes, I am brave, but I don't like thinking of myself as being brave. I don't want to have to be brave to be myself. That's not the way the world should work. But I also can't argue that it wasn't brave. I was scared. I was terrified, especially the first day, and I did it anyway. And I didn't die even once, so mission accomplished. But as each of them saw me presenting female and being my true self, I don't think anyone really had any additional questions. I am so much more obviously happy now and being myself than I ever was that I doubt anyone really has any questions about it. This is me. I was not brave enough to come out to my family. I haven't spoken to my parents in probably about 4 years. I haven't spoken to my sister in about 1.5 years or 2. And obviously this video will be public, and we have mutual friends, so I do expect that they may end up watching this video or finding out through the grapevine that this has happened and this is who I am. And I thought several times about reaching out to them, about coming out to them. And I've had other people tell me that I should do so as well. I've had my boss, my dentist tell me this. But the thing is that the reason I stopped speaking to them, yes, part of my abuse was centered around my gender identity and sexuality. That was one of the things I was bullied for by them, but it wasn't the primary reason that I stopped talking to them, that I stopped letting them talk to me. Coming out to my family is not really an option. They are going to eventually find out, that's my expectation, but I don't see any reason to open myself up to that continued abuse. The way I see it, my parents never loved me as I was, so I should not expect that they will love me as I am today, especially given their beliefs that I am aware of. I have a long way to go. I'm only a few months into my transition, and the oft-cited transition timeline is about 5 years. But I am already so much happier and at peace with myself than I ever have been. This feels right. I feel right. That's new. There are some things that are never going to change, and my dysphoria loves to latch onto those. My voice is basically my voice. For trans women, the hormones really don't affect it very much at all. The same goes for skeletal changes, so I'll always have these broad shoulders. I'll always be a big girl. But something that I learned through my exploration of myself and the world at large and gender as a concept is that it really is a spectrum. The goal for me, transition-wise, is not to cross some invisible line. It's to move myself closer to the female end of the spectrum where I feel more comfortable. As my gender therapist and members of my support group have said, no one would choose to be trans. It is not an easy life. And especially, I've been a feminist for a very long time. This is not a new thing since discovering my identity. This honestly had nothing to do with my identity. I just feel like women are people, so sue me. But anyone who would think that I would think my life was going to be easier, even if I could become a cis woman, is out of their mind. My point is that it's hard enough being a woman. It is hard being a trans woman. But I am perfectly willing to go through all of that hardship for just the fact that I feel comfortable. For the first time ever in my life, I feel like I'm where I belong. I feel like I'm starting to feel like my true self, like I always should have. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is your own happiness. Your own sense of comfort with yourself. Now, I'm not saying that if you want to murder people and that makes you happy that you should go do that. That's not what I'm saying. My being a woman does not hurt anyone else, but it makes me happier than I've ever been in my entire life to say that I am a woman. And I'm sure, because this is the internet, that I'm going to get a lot of negative responses. Bring it on. This is an opportunity to educate. To be completely honest, I've been feeling guilty because one of the goals of this channel was to have discussions about mental health, and I have not done that in months while I've been figuring all of this out. But I'm back, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot. But I think that this is where I'm going to end this video. I think I've done a lot to explain my experience, to describe how I feel, how I got to this point, the fact that it is a medical condition as identified by multiple doctors. So I guess all that's left to do is to reintroduce myself to you. Hello everyone, my name is Mia. I use feminine pronouns, she and her. Welcome to my channel. things are about to get interesting.